mirror last year's budget priorities, since so few of them were addressed by the city. In consultation with the budget committee, at a budget committee meeting last week, there was discussion and agreement that they should simply be reprioritized so that public health and resiliency and recovery, both as a community and economically, would be prioritized over some of the items that we prioritized before, such as building a new police precinct house and a lot of road repairs and stuff like that. So when we figure out how to prioritize, we take into account budget consultations with the agencies, district service experience throughout the year, such as how many complaints we have about certain issues, and then also just the number of years that we've had an item on our list and the city hasn't addressed it. So those budget items are up on our website for review. They are also, as per city planning rules, closely tied to our district needs statement. So when we iterate a district need, there should be a budget priority attached to that, and vice versa. If we've identified a budget priority, it should be tied to a need in the district. So in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic, we emphasized in the capital budget our need for outdoor space, which is because we're 59th of 59 community boards in terms of the percentage of residents who live more than a quarter of a mile away from a park, upgrading parks, adding additional green space, and once and for all, turning Newkirk Plaza into a public asset are in the top priority. Because we have some of the most overcrowded schools and the return to schools is contingent upon being able to distance students, we re-emphasized our already identified by the city and the Department of Education need for new school seats. School technology is a new need that we identified in consultation with Department of Education and to support distance learning. And then public broadband infrastructure, also a new need identified by the Economic Development Corp. And then some of our old trustee requests that have been on this list for a long time, such as building a new precinct house, repairing our road bridges, adding a generator to our firehouse because we are a district, one of the few districts left in Brooklyn without one, repairing trenches in the streets, transit accessibility, cameras, and we think that the School Construction Authority can and should do a better job of building garbage infrastructure into the schools so that they're not just piling it out on the street, as I'm sure we have all seen. So those are our capital requests. For our expense requests, we actually increased the request to baseline the budget for community boards because we are one of the few city agencies that hasn't grown since 2016. We haven't grown in terms of people power or funding, and we were not held harmless from cuts this year. Then we've also added public health programs and Department of Sanitation budget restoration because that was an agency that suffered the most draconian and instantly noticeable cuts of all of the city agencies that were hit with cuts after the pandemic. Housing inspections and because the need to maintain affordable housing should be highly prioritized if we're bringing new affordable housing online. We only have 40% of our current residential units, housing units, that adequately maintained. And then we focused a lot on our vulnerable citizens, our street homeless population, youth programming, our seniors, a growing demographic within our population in the district. And then from there, we sort of ratcheted down things that had been higher priorities in past years, but are still important, such as our infrastructure needs with Department of Environmental Protection. We've got a number of chronic flooding sites, support for our libraries, tree trimming from forestry, Department of Buildings inspectors. We can always use more of those. Emphasis on pest control. And then we took three different at-bats with Newkirk Plaza. We've asked DOT to adopt it into their Plaza program because that just seems to be the most logical thing to do. But we wouldn't say no to New York City Transit contracting with a community partner because it's arguably part of their domain, or just having EDC issue an RFP to enter into an agreement with a community partner. So those are our priorities. City planning sort of makes us list them in an order, but the fact that they appear on our list at all means that we value them all. And it's kind of negligible if something is 7th versus 8th, but they're two different agencies, they're just as high within each of those agencies, if that makes sense. So I think we have them closely tied to identified community needs, and I do urge everybody to read our district needs statement. The update will be on the website shortly.
Thanks, Sean. Do we have pre-registered speakers?
No.
Has anyone? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I had done the raise hand, but I don't know if it's functioning properly.
It's up there, Gail.
Okay, so first of all, well done, Sean, as usual. Just a quick question, and the first item under expense budget about getting additional community board staff. Should we not ask for the number of staff that we would like to have? Just a question.
I don't think so, Gail, because it's really about the budget of staff, and because there's so many different titles that we could bring on board and they have different pay scales, it's really not a numeric ask, it's really a baseline budget ask. And the problem, as board members might recall, we did receive a significant expense budget grant the past couple of years for $42,000. Had that been baselined into the budget, that could be either the technology upgrades we got or more urgently staff members. So really it's an increase in the baseline budget so that different community boards have the flexibility to do different hiring versus expense spending with it.
All right, thanks for the clarification.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Has anyone emailed the board office desiring to speak at this public hearing?
No.
While we've been.
We do not have any pre-registered public members.
Okay, then this hearing concludes at 6:31. And we're exactly 1 minute into the regular monthly meeting. So we'll start at this time.
Ed, can I interrupt just to make sure, just for clarity purpose, that the public hearing has concluded with a recommendation to submit these budget items as listed in this priority order? Can we state that for the record?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. So stated. Mm-hmm. Okay, so this meeting of Community Board 14 is called to order on November 9th at 6:22 p.m. under the applicable statutes of New York State, the Charter of New York City, board's bylaws, and Robert's Rules of Order. The board's policy is to encourage detailed public discussion of matters before the board at our committee meetings and at public hearings. Consequently, except by board members, there will be no public discussion at our regular monthly meeting of matters about which a public hearing or committee meeting has been held. Specific service delivery requests or complaints should be brought to the attention of the district managers, the district offices staff by calling the board office during regular business hours or by visiting our website anytime. Contact information we'll put contact information in the chat. Other matters of civic interest may be brought before the board during our scheduled public comment period which will begin tonight after all other of the board's monthly meeting agenda has been concluded. No partisan political appeals or advertising of for-profit enterprises will be heard. Persons wishing to speak during the public comment period have pre-registered by contacting the board office. Additional speakers may email the board office at this time or any time throughout the meeting. At this time, I will ask the board secretary to call the roll.
We're not going to do roll call for attendance because we'll do it as we've done in the past WebEx meetings, just by listing of members on the participants list, and Anya has clarified who's called in, so we should be able to get it that way.
Okay, sounds good.
And we do have a quorum, Chairman.
That sounds wonderful. Okay, so we'll then, I believe minutes have been distributed by regular mail or email to board members. So at this time, I'll accept.
Dale Smith, motion to approve.
Indy Bendel, motion second the motion.
It's been properly second. All those not in favor, please mute your phone. Please mute your phone. I'm hearing a lot of noise. Those not in favor of approval, please indicate your disapproval by raising your hand. I believe we have no hands raised, so the minutes are approved. District Manager Sean Campbell.
Thank you, Ed. We have a lot on the agenda tonight, so I will be brief, especially since I'm also going to be a little bit like a broken record here. Sanitation, major cuts to the budget, really noticeable impacts immediately. Had what was effectively a 63% reduction in service. The MLP, which stands for Manual Litter Patrol, which is the only function that cleans dead-end streets, was completely eliminated. We have 54 dead-end streets, so I mean, now what? The basket collection that we fought for 6 years to restore to 6 or 8 years to restore to 6 days a week is now back down to 2 days a week. And because of some council member funding in some parts of our district is up a little bit more than that, but it's baseline back down to 2 days a week. And we're getting loads of complaints about litter. So we will keep advocating for restoration of those cuts, but there are also a lot of responsibilities that are on private citizens, and that is please, please, please keep your sidewalks. And yes, 18 inches into the curb. If you can't measure 18 inches, give me a call. I'll come over. I have tape measures. I'll do it for you. But you've got to sweep 18 inches into those curbs. All of those falling leaves, the brooms that go down those streets. I've said this many times. I'm sorry. I know, broken record. Those fallen leaves, the brooms that go down don't have suction. They're not vacuum cleaners. So they have to, sometimes when people don't sweep, they have to go around, and then we get calls going, that the broom went around my leaves. Well, yes, you have to sweep those leaves up. We've got a lot of merchants who are good enough to adopt baskets on commercial corners. But if you go into a place and the basket is overflowing, ask the person with whom you're, business that you're spending money at, if they've adopted that basket, and encourage them to do that. Because if those baskets are chronically overflowing, we might have to pull them. So do your part, advocate for the restoration. In the meantime, do your part. Remember also your lawn maintenance companies. They're supposed to take that lawn refuse away. So get your money's worth, make them do it. But having said all of that, to the extent that there are still sanitation complaints, please bring them to our attention, and we'll do our best to help you out. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Sean.
Ed, it's Joe
I have a
Black.
question.
Question?
Yes.
Who was that? Joel?
Svi.
Yes. Okay, Svi, please.
Did I hear correctly that the sweepers, cleaners are not coming down the dead ends?
Correct.
No, that's not quite correct. The brooms will still do the dead end streets, but what's behind, like where there's a barrier at the dead end, where there's not a home and there's no curb, when tree branches would fall or litter would collect and or there'd be illegal drop-offs and that sort of thing, we could ask sanitation to attend to that kind of mess with their MLP. And so that's what's missing. We can still ask for some assistance. And if they have a spare truck, they can send out to do it. But now we're at their mercy asking for favors to the dead ends claims, because the city has completely eviscerated the actual service that would have done it otherwise.
What
Still go down.
What I'm not clear on, Sean, is are they coming down the dead end streets to clean like they used to do? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yes, they are. Okay, fine. Thank you.
Sean, Joel here. Just one thing.
Who's speaking, please?
Joel speaking. Joel speaking.
Go ahead, Joel. Okay.
Just quickly, Sean, to everyone, the sanitation department is also not doing any leaf collection for composting. They did it 2 days, 2 Sundays for the last couple of years. They're not going to do it because I get a lot of leaves. So
that's correct. Sorry, thank you, Joel, for reminding me. That was on my list and I just skipped over it. Yes, the leaf collection also completely defunded. And for those of you who are anticipating organics in our district, it's not happening because it's not even happening where it was happening. So organics completely defunded for the foreseeable future.
Okay, thank you. Joe Dweck?
Point of order, do we have to have a vote to adopt the budget recommendations? We only adopted our minutes, but not the budget recommendations.
Yeah, Joe, that's in the chairman's report. So I know you're excited, but just be patient for it.
We'll get there, Joe. Okay, any other comments? Okay. The chair's report is going to be quite lengthy, so before we get into that, I just want to acknowledge the presence of any elected officials or public officials or representatives who have joined us tonight. So I'm going to rely on
Hello, Chairman. I had a little audio glitch there, but we do have Councilmember Lewis with us this evening. I hope I wasn't speaking over Sean.
Wonderful. Councilmember Lewis, would you like to address the board members?
Can you hear me?
Yes, indeed.
Of course. Good evening. Thank you so much, Chairman, for the opportunity. Good evening, everyone. This is Councilmember Lewis. I represent the 45th Council District. I'm happy to join you all this evening. I know we had a crazy week last week, so we're back on board to regular scheduled programming. So really quickly, just wanted to wish all veterans a blessed and happy Veterans Day. I want to thank you all for your sacrifice and your service to our country. Also wanted to inform the board that we've been working in partnership with the mayor's office to lower the COVID-19 count in our district, particularly in Midwood, Flatbush, and the Flatlands area. We had a few sites that are now closed. They were all mobile sites. The ones that fell in the CB14 area was 1223 Coney Island Avenue. That was at the Midwood Pre-K. We're trying to see if they could extend it a little bit more. And another site was the micro site at Brooklyn SDA at 1260 Ocean Avenue. All of those ended as of last week. We're trying to push the mayor's office to reopen those sites for another week or two as we seek to lower the count. Want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving if I don't get to speak to you by then. Our office is closed but open to constituents if you have any cases or concerns or issues that you would like to bring to our attention or need our assistance. We're at 1434 Flatbush Avenue, Right now, we're seeing all constituents virtually or by phone. Our number is 718-629-2900. You can call us Monday through Friday from 10 to 5, and we'll schedule a virtual appointment with you or call you by phone if you leave a message. If you don't get us and you leave a message. Thank you so much to Sean for your support and to the chairman and the entire board. Have a blessed evening.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Lewis. Do we have any other public officials with us tonight?
We have several representatives from different offices, but no other elected officials at this time.
Okay. Well, I guess in the interest of time, since we might have quite a lengthy meeting, I'm going to ask representatives of public officials to just speak in the public comment period. And we'll start now with the the budget priorities for fiscal year 2020. Members at a public meeting on October 27th. While the requests from fiscal year 2021 are being carried over for the most part, there was an agreement to reprioritize the requests to align with health and economic recovery from the pandemic. To
So
endorse.
we need a vote on that item, but we need the board to, the recommendation is to submit those items as listed, and we need a vote, and it can be an abbreviated vote by the board members to approve that recommendation.
Thank you, Sean. So, board. Those, let's start with those opposed. Those opposed, please make it known by raising your hand.
I'm going to unmute the phone callers. If anyone would like to state their opposition.
No hands went up.
Okay, so those in favor?
Everybody else can be assumed to be in favor.
Well, yes, those all other board members obviously are in favor, so that the budget request passes. So now to move on, just a moment. We'll move on to 1650 Kentucky Road. Please mute your phones. Anya, is there a way to mute all phones at this time? Or mute all microphones?
We'll try again.
Thank you.
So Ed, there's some bandwidth issues, so if you have any trouble with your audio, you might want to just put your video down if there's any problems.
Okay.
Right now.
Okay, 1620 Cortelview Road. Board members present at the public hearing held on October 21st are recommending that the affordability add to the number of affordable units 40% AMI and commit to an equivalent distribution of affordable versus market rate studio, 1-bedroom, and 2 and 3-bedroom units. Maintain option 1 for the originally proposed 21 affordable units and enter a binding agreement to fund and contract with Community Board 14's local community-based organizations, Flatbush Development Corporation, Flatbush Tenants Association, and CAMBA to engage in outreach, assist current Community Board 14 residents with application readiness for the HPD required 50% local lottery preference. Just a moment. The bill so that there is a setback that benefits the Cortelview Road streetscape and decreases the visual imposition on neighboring residential units. The renderings presented are not final plans, and the applicant must demonstrate an effort, to decrease the visual imposition of the building. Incorporating a setback cannot be deemed a rationale for an inability to incorporate additional affordable units. Shadow study. Expand the shadow study to address incremental shadowing on Cortelview Road, which in the aftermath of the pandemic has become a de facto sunlight sensitive public asset, given the sidewalk cafes and expanded outdoor use. Given that this project anticipates the installation of solar panels, it is imperative that the shadow study demonstrates that the building will not limit the solar revenue of neighboring buildings. Conduct the shadow study with all potential setback plans. Expanded environmental study. Demonstrate that the site has no environmental concerns related to past dry cleaning use on the property. While it is entirely possible that this would be code mandated, we wish to have the result highlighted for community review. Commit to exceeding the city's 2020 energy code requirements, advancing resiliency, sustainable energy, waste and wastewater management. Provide an analysis evidencing that the additional strain on infrastructure, for example, sewers, gas lines, will not have an impact on the local community. Expand traffic study and support community public transit needs. Conduct a traffic study that demonstrates a non-disruptive delivery window for the retail components of the building. Provide measurements of the impact of 44 vehicles anticipated by the garage design on Cortelview Road, East 16th Street, and the residential blocks to the south of East 16th Street. For example, the study ingress and egress patterns. Ensure the provision of bike storage for residents and exterior bike racks for public use. Commit to supporting Community Board 14's efforts to convince MTA to restore the B22 bus route. Commit to support Community Board 14's request to MTA NYCT to conduct a station capacity study at the Cortelyou Road Brighton Line Station. Community amenities. Commit to a greener streetscape plan and demonstrate an ongoing commitment to ensure maintenance of plantings and street cleanliness along the proposed building line. Community District 14 ranks near the bottom of all 59 community boards in terms of the percentage of residents who live more than a quarter of a mile away from a park. Furthermore, the Lieutenant Federico Narvaez tot lot on Cortelyou Road would serve as an amenity to residents at 1620 Cortelyou Road. Therefore, an additional condition is to underwrite through the New York City Comptroller's Office a fiduciary account where upfront funding could only be withdrawn by NYC DPR toward maintenance and programming support for the Cortelyou Road tot lot. Demonstrate a long-term commitment to maintain the grocery store in its current scale on site. Next item on my report is a variance.
Ed,
And I
before you,
think we're going to need a roll call vote before we, I'm sorry, Sean.
yeah, I think if there's, because this is the public hearing was already held on this item, there's not an opportunity for public questions, but there is an opportunity should any members of the board wish to discuss this 1620 Cortelyou Road item at this time.
Absolutely.
Can you hear me?
Gail
Yes,
Smith
yes,
and Glenn Woolen
yeah.
both have hands up.
All right.
Gail,
Just a quick question. If I could recall correctly, the borough president's office was supposed to be having a public hearing tomorrow. Do we have any specifics on that or confirmation?
We can put the link to that public hearing in case anybody wants to speak at that public hearing in the chat. It is scheduled for tomorrow. That is a true fact.
Okay, well, I don't want to speak, but I do want to call in and listen to it.
Well, yeah, we'll make, we've sent the information to a number of our residents who've inquired about it. So we'll put the information in the link right now.
All right, thank you.
Glenn Woolen.
Thank you. I'd just like to point out one of your earlier comments was about the shadow study because of the street, all the people in the restaurants being out on the street. And I'd just like to point out that this is going to take a couple of years to build this building. And since Pfizer announced the probability of a vaccine, we probably won't have that particular problem. 2 years from
now. Glenn, there was a request that the streetscape not be, that the scale of the building be aligned to the streetscape. So it would still be, the reasoning might change, but the request from community members who spoke that evening was to lower that or set back the Cortelyou Road side. And I will say that we did get a letter just before the meeting started, that so it hasn't been closely reviewed, but there is the applicant's representative, Richard Lobel from Sheldon Lobel, has reviewed these items, and they're showing a willingness to review the conditions.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you both.
Carl Scissor has his hand up.
Carl, please.
Sure, no problem. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, District Manager. And so I think I'm doing this right, but in regards to 1620 Cortelyou Road, I'd like to put in a motion for this property for disapproval RIF recommendations. And my thinking behind that is essentially, I understand that the community board is making a recommendation and that it will make its way through the process, right? But if I understand correctly, approval with recommendations would mean, okay, the community board's with it, and if the recommendations were met, great. If not, okay, but it would still move forward. Whereas, in my opinion, disapproval with recommendations mean there's a stronger emphasis on the applicant, engaging in those recommendations as a part of the pathway to approval. And so I am putting forth a motion for disapproval with recommendations for this property.
Carl, let me be sure I understand your motion. Are you moving that the board disapprove this item unless those recommendations are met? Or are you saying disapprove it? And I'm not sure I quite understand clearly.
Sure, Ed. So yeah, so you summarized it correctly, Ed. Yes. So I am making a motion of disapproving unless the recommendations are met. Yes.
And if the recommendations then are met, then is that correct?
Yes.
Barden has his hand up.
Okay.
Yeah, I would second that motion, that basically we're essentially voting to deny unless the conditions are met.
Okay. Okay, then, board members, you've heard the motion, you've heard the second.
Jonathan
So-
Judge has raised his hand to speak to the motion.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, and Sean, perhaps you could clarify. But I don't believe that's an option to report out. I think the only options are approve with conditions, or disapprove. So I don't know if taking a position contrary to the way that it's meant to be received. Also semantically, approval with conditions is saying we deny it unless the conditions are met. So it means the exact same thing as what the proposed change is in the language. Because if we're not approving it wholeheartedly unless those conditions are met. So I'm not sure if there's a meaningful distinction to that language, but certainly we shouldn't submit to.
Alvin Burke has his hand up.
Great.
He can maybe clarify that. I think that's incorrect, Jonathan, but Alvin can clarify.
Chairman Burke?
Alvin, you have to unmute. There you go.
My understanding, if the chair's report contains a motion to approve, and that's inherent in the report. Is that correct?
Will you repeat that, please, Alvin?
Asking whether the chairman's report on this item includes a motion to approve, which would take precedence over any additional motions, such as the one reopened.
Alvin, I don't think that there was a motion on the table yet. The chairman's report was that the committee was recommending approval with conditions. There is a precedent and there is an allowance to disapprove with conditions. You're right. It's somewhat semantical, or semantic. There might be different sort of symbolism in terms of, how the community perceives it or how the applicant perceives which way you're leaning. But it's similar. You're either approving as long as the applicant meets the conditions, or disapproving unless the applicant meets the conditions. It's not a sort of, in practical terms, it's not a huge difference. It's just how the board wants to position the language. Barden Prasant has a hand up.
Please.
I personally believe that the disapprove/deny unless is a better reflection of certainly the majority of the input I think that we heard that night and in previous of, just listening in general and actual input that we've received. And I do believe that that is a stronger statement of what I heard the community have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Barton. As far as the, legitimacy or properness of the language, I'm not sure myself. It would require someone with better parliamentary skills than I, and John, that might be you. If there is anyone else, any other board member who is knowledgeable about this, I would like you to speak at this time.
Michael Cedillo has his hand up, and then Glenn Woolen had it put his hand back up.
Michael, please. Michael Cedillo, unmute yourself.
Oh, I was still talking on mute. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Wow. I never believe it when somebody says I was talking on mute during a meeting, but there I just did it. I don't have anything to add, Mr. Chair. I can't help clarify the scenario, but I just want to help. I want to understand what happens if we approve with conditions and the conditions are not met. I apologize if this is already said. I'm just having trouble following.
If then our approval, it has to become disapproval then, but again, remember what we're doing is making a recommendation. We're not making a final decision. We are not empowered to do that, but we are making a recommendation. And if our recommendation to approve or disapprove, however the language, with conditions, and if those conditions are not met, if it was approval with conditions, then of course that would void approval.
Okay, thank you. So then truly it's a matter of semantics.
I think so. But I'll follow the lead of the board here on this. If you'd like it, if you'd like to approach it from the negative side and say disapprove, unless conditions are met, or if you want to say approve, with conditions, I'm going to leave that up to the board, and I'd like you to decide on that.
Ed, this is Anya. I just want to let the call-in users know that you can also make a comment. Board members that are calling in, you are unmuted if you wish to comment.
The hands up are Glenn Woolen, then Steve Flotzker, then Nicole Levinson Angulo, and then Glenn Godet.
Okay, I'm gonna go to Steve Flotzker.
Yes, Mr. Chair, speaking at the time. If I'm correct, I heard correctly, Alvin Burks, I believe that someone's made about an I believe parliamentary, Alvin is expert. Based on that, it sounds like the denial with conditions is at least as equal, if not better, based on what was shown at the meeting from the residents. Am I correct?
Are you asking Alvin that question?
Well, I don't know. That's what sounded like what Alvin was saying. Did anyone else hear clearly?
No, I think Alvin was asking a procedural question about whether or not there was already a motion on the table before Carl made his motion.
And that's what I'd like to speak to.
Okay, let's hear you first.
It's
Go ahead,
up to the
Glenn.
chairman.
Go ahead, Glenn.
Thank you. When you, as the chair, proposed this whole scenario and talked about it, and then opened it up for our discussion, although no one said this is a motion, I believe that is exactly what it was, that it was a motion for us to discuss and then vote on. Therefore, it's inappropriate for another motion to be brought before us until that one is addressed. I believe that's the procedure. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. Thanks, everybody. It sounds like we need a parliamentarian, an office that's called parliamentarian. Okay, that's something that I am not sure on, Glenn. So it's not something that I can rule on or anything. So,
Mr. Chair, if I may, just Jonathan Judge, just on that
thank
point.
you, John.
I believe the way that Mr. Henry Caesar had worded it was as an amendment. Anything coming out of a committee, including the public hearings, which essentially function as regional committees, they report out the recommendation. So that's already considered a motion. As you reported it out, Mr. Chair, that was considered the motion being under consideration. And I believe that Mr. Henry Caesar's, Mr. Caesar's motion was an amendment to it. So on that ground, and it sounded like it might have been seconded, that it is valid typically in parliamentary procedure for consideration. For discussion to alter based on the wording that he proposed. So it would be valid.
John, I don't know about anyone else, but I missed so much of what you said. And it just, again, might be a bandwidth issue. Would you?
Do I come more clearly now?
I think so, yeah. You're not cutting out right now.
Okay, that sounds good. So I was just saying that because the motion was reported out from the public hearing, which is a form of committee, therefore, the motion of the recommendation to be considered is already on the floor. And so I believe that Mr. Caesar's motion was a motion to amend, and that would be valid to move to amend the recommendation that was proposed. So therefore, it's valid to consider that change, notwithstanding whether or not we can recommend a disapproval with conditions. But in general, one can amend a motion that's on the floor. So I just wanted to clarify that point.
Thank you, John.
Board members who still have a hand up are Nicole Levinson Angulo and Ann Godet. And if anybody, if a board member already spoke, could you put your hand down, please?
Nicole, please.
Hi, thank you for calling. I wanted to ask a question for those members of the board or Sean or you, Mr. Powell, who've been on the board for a long time. How many times, and again, anecdotally, when we have submitted these conditions, have those actually become a reality? The reason that I was supportive of Carl's suggestion is because we don't approve or disapprove anything. We only make a recommendation. And I felt that there were the list that Sean put together and that Chairman Powell read was so long and so negative that to submit, even though it's a matter of semantics, sometimes semantics are important, right? So it just felt weird to say, approval with such a long list of conditions. But again, to be clear, my question is for those of you who have been involved in these matters for a long time, when the board presents these kind of conditions, how often do they actually become a reality?
Well, I'll address that first, I guess. During my time on the board, I've seen many of these, conditions, and as far as I can recall, most of those that I've seen did in fact become a reality. Now, there are other people, who certainly Chairman Burke and others have been on the board as long or longer than I, and I would like also to hear their opinions or their observations.
Alvin, do you want to speak to that? Your hand is up.
Forgive my voice. That is correct. Usually conditions that the board stipulates along with a conditional approval are met by the applicant. It's a matter of the board being this reasonable about the conditions that it's demanding. As a matter of procedure, however, the board has traditionally, there's no reason to adhere to the condition unless it works. But it has worked in the past that the board has made these recommendations in the affirmative with conditions.
This is Nicole again. So thank you very much, Mr. Burke. I just feel then that if to hold the person that is applying for the approval accountable, it just seems much stronger to me to disapprove it and then say, you can come back to us if you've met these conditions and then approve it. But thank you for sharing the experience of past conditional recommendations like these.
May I speak again?
And Godette, oh, go ahead, sorry.
Okay, the question is one of leverage. It is whether the board has more leverage with a conditional motion to approve or more leverage with a conditional motion to disapprove. And I leave that to the judgment of the board members.
Ed, could you call on Greg Alvarez, who I think might be able to offer some clarifying information?
Absolutely. Greg, if you can elucidate here, please do so.
Sure. I can't necessarily say for sure I'm an expert on the city procedures, but I was just doing a search to see if I could find something that's helpful. There is an actual form on City Planning's website that that includes a recommendation form that to be filled out by community boards. On that form itself, where it gives you the options of what a community board can do, it actually does have a box for disapprove with modifications or conditions. So it does look like we are able to act in that manner. So I don't know if that's completely helpful, but it does look like it is accounted for in the ULIP process.
Thank you so much, Greg.
Sure.
Much appreciated.
I can also confirm that it's been a topic of conversation with Applicant's Representative as well as Richard Barrack at Borough Hall. So I can confirm that it is an option. And thanks a lot, Greg. Also, thanks to Greg and Barden, who assisted with the wording of the conditions, and should get credit for that. Anne Godette
Absolutely.
is a board member who's had her hand up for a long time and has not yet spoken.
And please speak.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you very much for the time. So a few things. If we're going to vote aye, nay, or abstain, going back to the original laundry list that was there, I believe there were two things that were missing that were at the time that we were adding conditions, and we approved it to leave committee with those conditions. They would include preferential housing for neighborhood CB14 residents who had lost the ability to remain in the district, so that they would be given preference for the affordable housing component. That was one. And the second was spoke to employment from the grocery store. I think that's it. Thank you very much.
And I can speak to the preference. The preference is that's an HPD requirement that 50% of the local members of the community would be given preference. That's not, there's no choice in that. That's an HPD requirement for the affordable housing. There is, as you might note in the language of the conditions, a request for commitment by the applicant to fund and contract with local community-based organizations, housing organizations. We specified CAMBA and FDC to assist with the application process. And as far as the employment one, I missed that somehow. We could certainly tack that on or write that up separately as a wish. It could be a wish rather than a condition at this point, since it's not on here unless there is a motion to add it.
Yeah, I too don't recall that one, but it sounds good.
And Ed, even though Richard Lobel is not a board member and conversation usually is only amongst board members, if you wish to give the applicant's representative an opportunity to speak, he does have a hand up and seems willing to do so. While you're thinking about whether or not you're going to let him, could I ask all board members who already spoke to please take your hand down, because I'm easily confused.
I would be happy to allow the applicant's representative to speak, but first I just want to exhaust input from board members. Is there anyone who has not spoken who would like to speak, or someone who has something additional to add?
Ann's hand is still up and Glenn Woolen's hand is still up.
Okay, Ann just spoke. Glenn, do you have something to add that we've not gone over?
It's just that I just would like to say that I'm favoring personally approval with the recommendations, because this is the longest list of recommendations I ever remember seeing. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Glenn.
Prasant's hand went up.
Okay. Ann, did you have something to add?
Ann, please put your hand down then.
Barton Prasant.
Sure, thanks. First, I would ask that a friendly amendment be made to include Ann's contribution to the letter, because I think it's very worthwhile. Second of all, I think that certainly it's appropriate to entertain the new motion that Henry put forward, because we did not have the actual letter when we were first discussing this in committee. And second of all, it was a consensus. It was not an actual vote of yeas and nays. So I would vote that everything sort of, or recommend that everything sort of stay as it is now, and accept Ann's as a friendly amendment. Thanks.
Okay. All right. So would the applicant's representative like to speak at this time?
Thank you, Chair Powell, and thank you, Sean. Richard Lobel of Sheldon Lobel for the applicant. Aside from thanking the community board for their extremely thoughtful consideration of the application, I just wanted to really make one comment with regards to the nature of the vote. I do not want to insert myself into this discussion with regards to approval or denial unless, etc., except to say two things. The first is it's somewhat meaningful to city planning in that despite the fact that a deny unless indicates support of the actual substantive application, the commissioners in the past have had issues with that and looking at it that way. So again, the community board will do what it does, but I will tell you that from my standpoint, having fought hard at the City Planning Commission for such applications, it is meaningful to them. The difference between a denial unless versus an approval with conditions. Having said that, I would merely say that to the extent that the community board does do deny unless, if there was some indication in the resolutions that the view of the board was to support the project, but that considering the conditions they were going to deny unless, it would just be helpful for me because at least it would be clear to the commissioners that this was an application that was supported as opposed to opposed in general. But again, words do matter to the commission, but I appreciate you giving me this 1 minute, and I hope that the vote goes well.
Thank you, Mr. LaBelle. Board members, is there any additional discussion before we go to vote?
Hi, Hindi Benzel. So,
Hi, Andy.
hi. As a teacher, we're taught to say everything in a positive manner as opposed to a negative manner. So just, and as Mr. Lobel has appealed to us, I would say we do it in the positive, but say that it's we're only agreeing to this with those conditions. I would try to do everything positively as opposed to disapproving upon condition. Just makes it easier for the people and for the process.
Ed, Billy Richling and Carl Henry Sazer have their hands up. There's a motion on the table though, too.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll hear from Carl and Billy. Carl, please.
So actually, I already spoke. I had a question just to confirm what we're voting on per Jonathan's comments earlier. So how about Billy go? And then after Billy go, I'll raise my point.
Okay, Billy.
Hi. Yeah, sorry, I guess what I'm about to say is contingent on whatever we decide in this sort of roundabout discussion about the language, but what I'm trying to say is I support the simpler approval with conditions framework because I want to understand what it is I'm saying when I vote, what I'm communicating with my vote.
So what needs to happen then, Billy, sorry to jump in, but just to get it so that we get to a point of clarity. Right now, there's a motion on the table to deny unless conditions are met. For those who want to vote against if that motion passes, then that's what it's going to be. If that motion fails, then somebody can make a motion to then approve with those conditions. But right now, the motion on the table is to deny unless. And Jonathan Judge can jump in if I got that wrong, but I believe that is the process by which we get out of if the board wants to move it to the pro-positive statement, this motion on the table has to be defeated first before that motion can then be made, and then presumably that would be supported in lieu of this.
Okay.
I concur with that.
Okay, thanks, Jonathan. I am catching on. So Ed, if you want to, there are no additional hands up. Carl seems to have taken his down, and I think that we need to go to unless Carl, jump in if I'm cutting you off, a roll call vote, which is going to be tricky under these circumstances, but Anya will call the names of the board members present. Hindi Bindel is going to keep track of the votes. Hindi will let us know if the motion to deny this application unless conditions are met passes or fails, and we will take it from there. Once we get through the entire roll call vote, if there's a board member whose name for some reason does not get called, you're just going to have to mute yourself and shout out loud. But Ed, if you want to turn it over to Anya, I'll defer to you to do that.
Certainly. Anya, please proceed.
Thank you, Chairman. Okay, everyone, I'm going to do the roll call a little unconventionally. I'm going to go in the order of WebEx, the way that the names are listed. So Hindi, I hope that works for you. That means you're not going to be exactly alphabetical. So unmute yourself when I call your name and say yes or no. Billy Richling.
Hold on.
No.
I'm sorry, just before you go, we're voting on the disapproval, right? We're voting to disapprove with conditions.
The wording is to disapprove the application unless conditions are met.
So if you say yes, then you disapprove, then you're
voting to disapprove. Okay. If you say no, you're voting that motion down.
Okay, so if you want that motion down, you say no. Okay.
Correct.
Okay. Billy Richling was first on my list, but I have lost Billy Richling, so I will come back to him and begin with Ephraim Nierenberg.
Abstain.
Did you abstain? I'm sorry, it's hard to hear.
Yes.
I abstain, yes.
Okay.
Kashif Hussain. Kashif Hussain. You're unmuted. Kashif? I'll move on and come back. And, oh, is that? Are we, okay. Ann Godette, you are unmuted. Ann Godette, one more time. Ann Godette.
I abstain. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you, Ann. Next is Abe Treff. You're unmuted.
No. I vote no.
Next is Alvin Burke. You're unmuted.
Abstain.
Thank you. Next is Barden Prasad. You're unmuted.
Yes.
Next is Billy Richling. You're unmuted.
I vote no against the motion.
Thank you, Billy. Sorry about that.
Shut up.
Next is Deborah Valentine. You're able to speak?
I have
Abstain, right. Thank you. I got that.
Sorry, I didn't hear what you said. Did Deborah Valentine abstain?
Abstain, correct.
Okay.
Donald Goggins, you're unmuted?
Yes.
Thank you.
I didn't hear what he said. I'm sorry.
He said yes, Hindi. Donald Goggins is a yes. Next is Dwayne Joseph. You're unmuted.
I vote no.
That was a no. Next is Edward Sen. Was that abstain?
No, that was yes.
A yes. Thank you. That was yes for Edward Sen. Next is Ed Powell.
No.
Thank you. Next is Florencia Chang Ajeda.
No.
Thank you. Next is Bill Smith. You're unmuted.
No.
Thank you. Next is Glenn Woolen. You're unmuted.
No.
Thank you. Next is Greg Alvarez. You are unmuted.
I'll vote no.
Thank you. Next, Hindi Bendel.
I vote no.
Thank you. Next is Howard Sokol. You're unmuted.
Yes.
Thank you. Next is Joanne Brown. You're unmuted.
I vote no.
Thank you. And next is Joe Dweck. You're unmuted.
I vote no. Joe Dweck, no.
Thank you. Next is Joel Siegel.
I vote no.
Thank you. Next is Jonathan Judge. You're unmuted.
I vote no.
Thank you. Next is Carl Henry Cesar. You're unmuted.
Thank you. I vote yes.
Thank you. Next is Michael Cedillo. You're unmuted.
Yes.
Thank you. Next we have Mohammed Razvi. You are unmuted.
No.
Thank you. And next we have Naomi Livnik. You are unmuted.
No.
Thank you. Next we have Nicole Levinson Angulo. You are unmuted.
Yes.
Thank you.
Was that a yes?
That was a yes for Nicole Levinson Angulo. Nina Sabgir, you are unmuted.
Vote yes.
Thank you. That was a yes. Shahid Khan, you are unmuted.
Yes.
One more time, Shahid?
Yes.
Yes, that was a yes.
Is that a
Thank
yes
you.
or no?
That was a yes. Next we have Steve Cohen. You are unmuted.
No.
Thank you. We have Steve Platzker. You are unmuted.
Abstain.
Okay. And I believe the final member is, oh, I'm sorry, we do have a few people on the phone. We'll go to one next, but the final web member is Zach Khan.
Yes, I vote no.
Thank you. And I will now go to our phone calls. One moment, please. Okay. I am going to unmute our phone callers. Carmen Bell?
No.
No? And are there any other board members calling in on the phone that haven't voted yet? I believe that concludes the vote, Chairman.
So, Hendy, we'll wait for your tally.
So the motion is denied.
Motion's denied, okay. So, since that motion has been denied, I'll entertain a motion, original, or the previous motion.
Well, this is for me, everyone had.
Which I'm going to abstain.
Okay, would anyone like to make a motion to approve with the conditions?
Yes, I would like to do that. I'd like to make the motion that we approve with the listed conditions.
Hindi Bendel, I second the motion.
Okay.
That the board approve with the stated conditions. I guess we're going to have to go through a roll call vote again, unfortunately. So
This guy,
so let's get geared up, and I'll go to Anya.
Okay, everyone, we're going to do this the same way. Nice job. And start this time, just listen for your name. The first board member is Ephraim Nierenberg. You're unmuted.
Just before,
yes.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Just before the vote begins, just to be sure that everyone understands, what you're voting for or against. A vote of yes is to approve the recommendation that, the recommendation to approve with conditions. A yes is for that, a no is against that. Please.
Thank you.
I abstain.
Okay, thank you, Ephraim. And this time,
Abstain. Yes, what?
Thank you, Ephraim. Yes, I got it. One abstention for Ephraim. And instead of saying you are unmuted every time, when I say your name, just know you will be unmuted so we can get a little faster.
Anna, we only had Ephraim vote so far, correct? And he abstained.
Yes, that is correct. Only Ephraim had one abstention, and we're moving on to vote number 2 now.
Okay.
Thank you. Kashif Hussain. Kashif Hussain, you're unmuted. Okay, moving on. Abe Treff.
yes.
Thank you.
I vote yes to approve.
Thank you. One yes. Alvin Burke.
Yes.
Thank you. Ann Godet. Abstain. Abstain. Thank you. Barden Prasant.
No.
Thank you. Billy Richling.
Yes.
Thank you. Dawn Marie Walker. Dawn Marie Walker, you're unmuted. Deborah Valentine.
Did we get a vote from Dr. Walker?
I did not get a vote from Don Marie or Kashif, I'll go back to them at the end if we like.
I have to abstain.
Abstain. Very good. That was Deborah Valentine Hindi. Abstain.
Okay, thank you.
Donald Loggins.
Yes.
Thank you. Dwayne Joseph.
Yes.
Thank you. Edward Sen.
No.
Thank you. Ed Powell.
Yes.
Thank you. Florencia Chang Ajeda.
Yes.
Thank you. Gail Smith.
Yes.
Thank you. Glenn Mullen.
Yes.
Thank you. Alvarez.
Yes.
Okay. Hindi Bendel.
Yes.
Great. Howard Sokol.
Yes.
Thank you. Joanne Brown.
Yes.
Okay. Joe Dweck.
Yes, approved. Yes, approved.
Thank you. Joel Siegel.
Yes.
Jonathan Judge.
Yes.
Carl Henry Cesar.
No.
Thank you. Michael Cedillo.
Yes.
Okay. Mohammed Rasky.
Yes.
Nick.
Yes.
Nicole Robinson Angelo.
No.
Nina Sapgir.
Abstain.
Shahid Khan.
Yes.
Steve Cohen.
Before I vote, I just want to know if Maria Walker put in the chat that she votes yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, who is that?
Dawn Marie Walker put in the chat that she voted yes.
Thank you, Don. We got your vote.
Yeah.
Very good. We also are waiting for a vote from Kashif Hussain. If you want to put it in the chat, you can as well. Steve Cohen.
Yes.
Thank you. Oscar.
Abstain.
Okay. And Zach Khan.
I vote yes.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
That was a yes.
Yes.
For Zakaria Khan.
Yes.
Thank you. And now I'll go to the call-in users. Carmen Bell.
Yes.
Thank you. I believe the vote has concluded, Chairman.
Thank you. And Hendy, what is the result?
The motion carries.
The motion carries. So the board's recommendation with regard to this item will be to approve with the stated conditions and possibly the addition of another with regard to employment of local residents at the grocery store.
Ed, just for clarity, that additional condition was noted already, so was part of the vote, and so I believe now is a part of public record and will be added. No ifs, ands, or buts.
Okay. So
Good job, everyone.
I just like to thank everybody for your lively discussion and concerns. I mean, this is what an active board is supposed to do. Now we're going to move on to the next item, which is a variance. With regard to 1284 East 19th Street, BSA number 2020-55BZ. The consensus of board members attending was to recommend approval of this application. Yeah, first let me let's see if there's any discussion on this before we go on.
Ed Sen has his hand up.
Ed, please.
Thank you, Chair Powell. Just during the public meeting, I raised a question of regarding mandatory and inclusionary housing, and it was clarified that since this is a variance, that this isn't a requirement. I would just like to make a suggestion that on the recommendation that with this variance come affordable housing of some sort that this developer considers. That is all.
Okay, thank you, Edward. Is there any additional, any further conversation? Anyone have anything further to say on this? Did I hear somebody?
I don't see any hands, Ed.
Okay.
Raise my
So,
hand. Hi, it's Nina Sabgi.
Nina Sadgir.
So I have a question, which I guess I kind of missed it the first time around. But how are they able to not have a certain amount of affordable housing included in this building?
Sean, you want to address that?
It's not in an MIH zone, and Greg Alvarez also has a hand up and may be able to apply his expertise to that question in greater detail. Sorry, Greg, if I'm putting you on the spot, but hopefully you can do it.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, again, I wouldn't, rely necessarily on me completely, but my understanding on this, or for this particular matter, is they're asking for what amounts to, what was it, a rear yard variance, right? On the application.
Yes. Yeah, that was it.
Yeah. So basically, it's in a different section of the zoning resolution. So with the last matter, they asked to have the mandatory inclusionary housing zone applied to them, and therefore that was the basis upon which we could ask for an affordable housing component to it, and they're required to get that zoning. On this one, though, the variance is of a different sort. It's just a dimensional variance that they're asking for, as opposed to something more substantial. Now, that doesn't mean, and I think to Edward's point, I think we could certainly make that as a recommendation for the applicant to consider it, but it's not something that comes from the zoning ordinance itself. So I think that's the difference here.
There was the applicant's representative did note that they were applying for the 421A tax abatement, and we could write a letter of support in terms of that application in order for the dwellings to become affordable housing, if that would be a useful way of going about it.
Okay, thanks everyone.
If I may make another point, I just
Sure.
I just feel that the developer fully and is well aware, since what's currently existing on the property itself is a single family home, and they're looking to develop a multi-story unit, multiple units, and I think that this is something that we should consider as well.
Okay, Edward, are you is this a motion or is this a suggestion?
Sure, I'm happy to make the motion that we make the recommendation to include affordable housing. I will defer to Mr. Alvarez with as far as the language of how we would want to state this as far as includable housing, whether it's AMI and so on and so forth.
Well, if I could just, I think that
sure.
To Sean's point, where the applicant is, it sounds like, going to actively seek the tax abatements, which would incorporate affordable housing into the development. I think maybe that's the way to do it, to say that we're supportive of it and that we would want that as part of this development. That would be, a condition that would be part of our recommendation, to say that not only that they consider it, but that that it should be part of this development if it were approved.
That sounds great to me, Mr. Alvarez. Thank you.
Yeah, Greg, I would think that would be the way to go with this as well. Is there any further discussion on this? Okay, I would love to do an abbreviated vote here, if we can. So is there? I mean, I think everyone, if you don't understand, this motion, if you don't understand, what we're voting on, please speak up now. While we're still discussing this. Okay, so we'll
call for the question, please, Mr. Chairman.
Who just spoke?
I believe that was Refriam. Just
Joe
restate
Dweck,
the was it? Just restate the motion.
Okay. The motion, as I understand it, is to approve this variance, as was the consensus, of members attending, to approve the application for this variance, but to include, Greg, I believe your suggestion was to include information regarding affordable housing.
Yes, I think if we can, as a condition of approval, for them to seek, what is it, 421B, right? The tax abatement to allow for affordable housing as part of the project.
Okay, is that understood now?
Okay. Joe Dweck, I do not understand that condition at all.
It's simply to support the application, to recommend approval of the application with the addition of support for their application for the tax abatement to expand the affordability. It really puts no additional onus on the applicant.
Exactly.
It's approving their application with extra work for us, but in order to signal support for that application, so the affordable housing is included.
Did they already ask for the tax abatement? And it's my understanding that if somebody wants tax abatement, they automatically have to include affordable housing as a proportion. Isn't that correct?
They said that they were applying for it, Joe.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, board members, you've heard the motion or the recommendation from members attending.
Ann Godette has a hand up.
Ann Godette?
Yeah, hi. So I'm just curious, for the members present at this meeting versus those who attended and voted it out of committee, should we expect going forward that every variance from us, or most variances from us, whether in an MIC zone or not, we would expect, or member presenters, their attorneys, et cetera, should expect that we will then be overlaying this. Because I'm curious why it didn't come up at the committee meeting. If it's something that we wish to raise higher on our particular radar.
You mean the affordable housing piece?
So yes, so this is being my understanding is that Sean suggested and it's not a bad suggestion, but because of the 421A or B tax abatement being sought that was revealed by the presenter, we're now affixing a request. We will support that abatement request pending or predicated upon mandatory inclusionary housing of an undetermined income band being approved. So I'm just curious if this should be something going forward we should include in all committee discussions for variance, whether in or not in a mandatory inclusionary housing zone. That's just a statement.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know that, that we should just, make that a practice or something. It's our process that, at public hearings, a number of board members attend, sometimes more than others. And, we arrive at a consensus on whether something should be disapproved, approved, or it should be conditional. And the process then is to bring it to the full board where it is further discussed, and things like this will come up, so I don't know if that's something that we should, that we should just, well, let me hear from board members on this. What do you think, guys?
It doesn't necessarily pertain to the motion that's on the table, though. This is a policy question about other applications that aren't even before us. Barden, Prasant, and Glenn Woolen both have hands up, though.
Okay, Barden.
Thanks. I think in this case, it's not as if we brought the subject to bear. It was brought up by the applicant saying they were looking for 421A, and I think it's reasonable for us to simply acknowledge the fact that we appreciate the fact that they are considering adding affordable housing to the project, and therefore would like to encourage the city to approve the 421A. On a separate point, I think Anne's raising it as a larger issue. I would welcome the discussion, in a larger context, maybe as an actual agenda item. What is either official or unofficial stance of CB14 on promoting affordable housing in the neighborhood? Thanks. Bye.
Thank you so much. Next speaker was Glenn Woolen.
Thank you. On one hand, I'm always in favor of affordable housing in any way we can promote it. On the other hand, when we have a committee and we have somebody in front of us that we can give them an opportunity to respond to whatever it is we're thinking, I think that's important. And to change the nature of what we're doing after they're no longer in the meeting as a procedural issue, I think is questionable. That's it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Glenn. Again, as the district manager pointed out, this is, a procedural matter that we can take up, when it's appropriate to do so. But right now, there is this motion, or at least this recommendation. So can we just kind of table that for now and take that up maybe in
Ed, we have I've had a conversation with Richard Barrick, and we will have another land use meeting probably early in December to go over special permit, ULURP, and we can talk about housing policy at that meeting with
Sounds
Richard,
good.
and we can bring other experts in. Did you want to do an abbreviated vote on this?
Yes.
Recommendation to approve the application with offering additional support for their 421 A or B tax abatement application.
Yes. Those opposed, please raise your hand. Or if you're on the phone, if Anya if you can unmute the mics so that people on the phone can vote verbally.
Barton Prasant, your hand is up. Is that a nay vote?
If you want to raise your hand, vote no by raising your hand.
And Carmen, any board members on the phone, you can speak if you want. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Barton put his hand down and there are no hands up. It's looking unanimous.
So there's no votes. The recommendation will be to approve.
Ed, do you want to ask for abstentions on this one?
Okay, we can, I guess, according to parliamentary practice, we should. Is there anyone who wishes to abstain? Please
Ann
raise your
Godet.
hand. And Godet is abstaining?
Yes.
Okay.
Deborah Valentine?
Deborah,
Deborah is
you're abstaining as well?
Yes.
Florencia Changajita is abstaining.
Okay.
Did we have 3 abstentions or 2, Sean?
3. We have Ann Godet, we have Florencia Changajita.
Thank you.
Valentin, and now
Okay.
Steve Cohen's also abstaining.
Abstain, Steve?
Yes.
Thank you.
Abstaining.
Okay. So,
Also, Brian Cunningham just put in the chat that he's abstaining.
okay.
Thank you.
And Gail Smith has abstained.
Okay. Is there anyone who wishes to declare himself or herself ineligible to vote on this? If so, please raise your hand right now.
When you say ineligible to vote, can you
I mean,
tell me?
you are not eligible to vote because there might be a conflict of interest.
Yes, that will be
for
me.
you to vote.
That will be me.
Okay, Deborah.
Yes.
Deborah Valentin is
Yes.
ineligible. Thank you.
I will change the vote. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, and sorry to have wrested this away from Hindi Bindel, but I was keeping track of it and can tell you that the motion did carry.
The motion carries. So again, the recommendation to the board's recommendation will be to approve. The next item is a special permit 1215-1217 East 22nd Street. After quite a lively conversation regarding housing stock and combining lots for single family homes, the recommendation to the full board is to approve this application. I should mention that combining lots, as this applicant wants to do, they are allowed to do this as of right. So is there any discussion on this? Special permit 1215-1217 East 22nd Street.
call-in users, you're unmuted if you would like to speak.
I should have said that the recommendation of the full board is to approve this application. Was there someone trying to speak and I interrupted?
No, I unmuted a phone user, Ed. I think they just had some music on. It's fine.
Okay.
Ed, I see no hands raised on this application.
Okay, abbreviated vote. Is there anyone who wishes to vote no on this? Raise your hand if so.
I see Billy Richling. Billy Richling, are you voting no?
Correct.
Thank you.
Ed, this is Dwayne Joseph. I'm voting no. Sorry, I don't know how to raise my hand using my phone.
That's all right. Thank you.
I got it, Dwayne. Anyone else, you could speak or raise your hand.
This is Joanne Brown. I'm voting no.
Thank you, Joanne.
Ed Sen, voting no.
Thank you, Ed. Anyone else? We have 4.
Brian Cunningham.
Do we have a vote for Brian Cunningham?
Yes. Has his hand up on the no vote.
Gail Smith also no. I'm having problems now with the raise hand.
Thank you. Anyone having problems with the raise hand function is welcome to speak and just state your vote.
Okay, there are no other hands on no's. If you want, do you want to call?
Is there anyone who wishes to abstain on this?
Sean, I'm sorry, I'm having a difficulty. This is Kashif. I'll raise my hand for no.
Okay, Kashif is a no. And we have Ann Godette and Greg Alvarez are abstaining.
Okay. Any other abstentions? Okay, is there anyone who wishes to declare himself or herself ineligible to vote because of a possible conflict of interest?
Yes, Deborah Valentine.
Deborah Valentine?
Yeah.
That would seem to conclude the vote, Ed. If we could just state for the record, though, just so that it's in the public record, you know, this meeting is recorded and we do have members of the public here. There might be other nuances in the application, but the conversation or the tension in this application was that the building was going to combine 2 single-family homes on 2 lots and join them into 1 single-family home. So I did send a memo to all of the board members. You should have received it today with your meeting reminder. And again, this is another topic we can add to our discussion when we talk about land use policy for the board as a whole. But otherwise, I just wanted to get that in there. Otherwise, that was not a part of the application. What the board has approved was the typical special permit requests for side yard, rear yard, and floor area ratio that are out of compliance. So sorry if I just confused matters, but the motion did carry to approve it.
Thank you, Sean, for reminding us. And again, the application will be, the recommendation will be to approve. Finally, the men's shelter at 21 Duryea Place. Community Board 14, you know, to remind everyone, was not consulted on this location. But we do appreciate that DHS and the Black Vets for Social Justice presented at a public hearing held on October 21st and committed to providing real-time contact information to neighbors, ongoing engagement with the King's Theater, and with the Jewish Board of Children's and Family Services, and that they will establish a community advisory board. With this item, this does not require a vote, as I understand it. So having reported that, that does in fact conclude the chair's very lengthy report. Thank you everyone for your patience and all your help. So we'll move on now to topical committees and their reports and items, starting with community environment. The co-chairs of Community Environment Committee here.
I don't know if there's anything to add to this. We haven't had any kind of meeting, and I'm not aware of anything to really contribute at this point.
Okay, thank you, Nina Sabir. Education, libraries, and cultural affairs.
Sure. Hi, folks. Carl here. So, update is we don't have any meetings scheduled for November, and Steve and I are thinking about maybe having a meeting in December. That's it for the update.
Thank you. Human Services.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hi, Board. Joanne Brown here, Co-Chair Human Services Committee. I do have an announcement and just a very quick update. First announcement is that the Human Services Committee is having a meeting. That meeting is on November 19th. That's a Thursday. It's at 6:30 p.m. virtual. We have 2 items on our agenda. The first item is we're going to hear from the Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs. There is a new outreach and organizing fellow who'd like to talk to us. And we're also going to have a discussion about the closing of Kingsbrook Jewish Medical Center's acute care beds. We plan to have a couple of physicians and employees talk at that meeting. I think it should be quite lively. I'd like to invite you to come and listen to the discussion about both of those topics. And then just a little update about the census. I know we've all moved on from that because we've just come off a very interesting election season, but the census ended on October 15th. The total response, including self-response and NARFU response, was 59% for Kings County. As we get closer, hopefully we can come to some miracle where there is a call that the count was truncated and they will go back and look at the areas that need to be readdressed, reopen the survey. That would be really great. And I just want to give a respect to the veterans. Veterans Day is on Wednesday. Thank you so much for your service. And thanks, I'm done.
Thank you, Joanne. Public safety.
Mr. Chair, the only thing I want to announce is that there's a public safety meeting on December 2nd at 6:30 virtually at the current time.
Thank you. Transportation.
No report at this time, Chairman Powell.
Youth services.
Hello, this is Dwayne. Just an announcement that the Youth Service Committee will be having a meeting on Monday, November 23rd. We do have 2 items on the agenda. We've invited a representative from the from DYCD, the Department of Youth and Community Development, to talk about their Workforce Connect programs and what they're going to look like moving forward for our young people. As you all know, our youth conference is heavily dependent on engagement from our young people applying for whether it be SYEP or Work, Learn, and Grow or some of the other Workforce Connect programs. So we're having a representative come and speak to what those programs might look like moving forward. So we encourage you to, let anyone you know in the community that might be interested in getting an update on this to participate. And also, the second item, we're going to be continuing our discussion on developing a youth leadership council for CB14. And with that respect, or in that respect, we have representatives from the Office of the Mayor, the Vista Office of the Mayor, coming in to speak to their youth council and what they're doing to help give us some guidance. Jonathan, you can let me know if I'm missing anything. Sean, you can also let me know if I'm missing anything.
I think that covers it, Dwayne. Thank you.
All right. Thank you all.
Thank you, Dwayne. So this brings us to our public session.
Oh, Ed, actually, I'm so sorry. It's Sean. I'm going to jump in and interrupt before you go there because I want to fill in a little bit. The Community Environment Committee they actually do have a meeting scheduled on Monday, November 30th. It will be a presentation regarding the affordable housing RFQ, which is the affordable housing proposed development at 2286 Church Avenue. That's the Church Avenue, Bedford Avenue lot. And it's going to be a big proposal of 100% affordable housing. I think especially given our land use and affordable housing conversation tonight, it'll be of great interest to board members and beyond. And then there's going to be another discussion about NYC 5G infrastructure, but that housing thing is a hot topic. So we hope that we'll get a good crowd at that virtually. Thanks.
Thank you, Sean. Okay, if there's nothing more, this brings us to our public comment period. Matters of civic interest and announcement of public events are invited. No partisan political appeals or advertising of for-profit enterprises are permitted. The intent of the public comment period is to permit the board and the community a chance to hear diverse perspectives on public issues. Accordingly, speaking time will be assigned first to speakers from different groups, then to speakers addressing different issues, and finally, time permitting, to additional speakers on an issue from a single group. Sean, do we have any pre-registered speakers?
I might lean on Anya to see if there's anybody who signed up on behalf of an organization. Otherwise, I can call on some of the elected representatives.
Sure. Yes, no one has actually signed up, but I do see some of our regular representatives that are with us. So if you want me to address them, I can, or if you want to.
Go ahead. You've got the floor.
Please, by all means.
All right. Well, this is not in order, but David Nussbaum, would you like to speak from the Department of Buildings?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, indeed. Go ahead, David.
Okay, just very briefly, Department of Buildings continues our mission as always. Some services are being done remotely, and some office hours are reduced, but you still can go into offices to conduct your business as well. One thing I did want to bring up, which is important with regard to, of course, smoke detectors, but carbon monoxide detectors. We've had a couple of incidents recently, unfortunately, where there were carbon monoxide incidents, including fatalities. So certainly very important just to remind people to have working carbon monoxide and smoke detectors in their home or building. That's all I really have right now.
Thank you, David.
Thank you, David. Next, I see Eileen Mulaney Newman from the Borough President.
Oh, hey there, everyone. I don't have anything to report, except I'm glad that you brought up the information about our ULURP meeting tomorrow night. So That's good that everybody has that information. I also want to thank the board for taking such time and consideration in that 1620 Cortelia Road rezoning matter. It's really wonderful to see. So thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Monique Waterman from New York City Health and Hospitals. Would you like to speak? Perhaps not. I'll move on. Nancy Lulu from the District Attorney's Office.
Good evening, everyone. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, indeed.
Hope everyone's well. This evening, I bring with me greetings on behalf of District Attorney Eric Gonzalez to each and every one of you. And also on behalf of DA Gonzalez, happy Veterans Day, remembering with gratitude the brave men and women who made this ultimate sacrifice for our nation. Thank you for this. At the Brooklyn DA's office, our core obligation remains the same. We continue to work here and prosecute cases. DA Gonzalez and members of the office have been out there in the community, partnering with organizations, providing services and resources. Back on October 24th, in light of Domestic Violence Awareness Month, members of our Victim Services Bureau participated in the Day of Dignity event that the American Council of Minority Women, ACMW, and IRUSA hosted within CB14's district, where members of our office brought awareness to domestic violence and spoke about the supportive services that we offer at our office. So far, we've had 38 food and PP distributions throughout the pandemic. Nothing really. In closing, I would like to provide my contact information, luluann@brooklynda.org. And if any individual would like to address a matter or file a complaint, please reach out to the DA's Action Center at 718-250-2340. And also on behalf of DA Gonzalez and myself, I would like to wish everyone a happy and blessed Thanksgiving. Finally, thank you to District Manager Sean Campbell, the Chair, Mr. Ed Powell, Anya, and all the members of CB14. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak this evening. Be well.
Thank you, Nancy.
And I see that we have Pincus Hyken from the Comptroller's Office.
Hi, do you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Hi, Sean, Ed. On behalf of the controller, just want to wish everybody a happy Veterans Day and also a happy Thanksgiving Day. We're just around the corner, and I just want to thank Sean and Ed for helping us and joining in the Controllers Roundtable that's coming up on the 16th from 12 to 1. It's open to board members. If anybody's interested, just contact Sean or Ed, and thank you again for the time.
Thank you, Penny.
Mr. Chairman, that's all I see as far as representatives. I would like to give people the opportunity if anyone else would like to raise their hand or make a comment. And I also will unmute the call-in users at this time in case they would like to comment.
Yes, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good afternoon. This is Alicia Goodrich, Chief of Staff to Assembly Member Donna Richardson from the 43rd Assembly District. I wanted to bring greetings from the office. We have Joanne Joseph on the line, but I'm joining this evening and will be joining the meetings monthly and look forward to working with everyone. And first, I would like to be sure to thank our veterans. We honor and respect them and every day, but this week we have to give them all the gratitude for what they have done for us. Also, we will be hosting a number of Thanksgiving events for our constituents. We are coming off of 30 weeks plus of food distribution throughout the community. We've partnered with several churches and organizations, and we continue to do that on a different level. But we are remaining on the ground, serving our community because our district is a food desert. Also, if you already may have known, we had a gun violence march this summer in correlation to the recent uptick in shootings in the Woodruff Ocean Avenue area, and we are working on, Assemblywoman is pushing very hard with the city, the council member, and the senator to push for funding so that we get a Cure Violence group over in that area. So please stay tuned for that. Last but not least, we will be doing a turkey drive. I did mention that we are having different events, and we will be co-hosting, collaborating with Kingsbrook Jewish on May the 16th for a community information session. So anyone that is interested, they will have their questions answered at that point concerning all of the changes that are happening there. And if there's anything that is needed within the district from the community board and the likes, you can reach out to us at 718-771-3105. And my email address is goodridgea@nyassembly.gov and district 43@nyassembly.gov. Thank you and have a great holiday.
Thank you so much.
Mo Busby has a hand up.
Yeah, so real quick, I just want to let everyone know, thank God for all the volunteers that are coming in from Community Board 14. COPA was able to distribute, since the pandemic, 14 million pounds of food. And that is not just in the neighborhood, but also to 60 other organizations. If there's any group that wants to do a food pantry in their neighborhood and they're not finding the resources or anything, we can assist them. We have a mobile food pantry trailer that we will deliver to our community 14 district. Addition to that, regarding with resources, so any person that you know of who may not receive or is not eligible to receive the stimulus checks, unemployment checks, and I'm talking about the other folks that need help, we currently distributed $300,000 worth of cash cards, and we are able to continue because of our partnership with Catholic Charities and private donors. So we have those resources. Please, if you know of a family who can't pay their bills, electric bill or something, and they're not eligible to receive any type of financial assistance from the city, please reach out to us or send them our way. My phone number, 718-434-3266. Thank you so much, and God bless you.
Thank you, Mo. Anyone else?
We should note that Dwayne Joseph does represent Assemblymember Diana Richardson. Just because he didn't put that hat on tonight doesn't mean that he can't bring back information to that office. So I always want to thank Dwayne for all of the hats he wears. Not as many as the chairman, but he's catching up to you, Ed.
Yeah, I know. Okay, so that concludes our public session. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
To adjourn.
Seconded.
Okay, so this meeting concludes at 8:27 p.m. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thank you for staying so long. It's a long meeting.
Good night, everyone.
It's appreciated.
Thank
I
you.
know the
Good night,
community
everybody.
appreciates it.
Thank
Good night.
everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Have a good night. Stay safe.
Great job, Tanya Hoyer.
Good night, folks.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you,
Good
Sean.
night.
Thank you, Anya.
Bye, Ed.